Hello, welcome to FightCore USA.
If there's one person in combat sports who gets overlooked more than anyone else, it's got to be the Cut. These guys are unsung magicians who work in the high-pressure environment of the ring or the octagon, and if they make one wrong move, the consequences could be dire. They have 60 seconds between rounds to work miracles. And if they do their job well, no one will ever know. But if they make a mistake, everyone in this video, we're going to talk about what exactly these people do. Why it's such a dangerous job and how important they are to the sport. These men don't get nearly enough credit for what they do. But first, if you like what we're doing here, stay tuned for more top-tier combat sports content. When most people think of working in combat sports, the first thing that comes to mind is being a fighter. If you're a fan of the sport, chances are you probably thought about fighting yourself at some point. But outside of the athletes themselves, there are actually two other essential positions that come into play every single time a fight happens. The referee and the cutman. One of them is there to keep everyone safe, and the other is there to keep the fighters healthy. Cutman work during the breaks in the action, usually between rounds, to patch up any cuts or wounds that the fighter may have sustained during the course of the fight. While they work, they're looking for three things: cuts, swelling, and blood loss. If they see any of those, they need to address it right away. Cuts need to be stitched up so that the fighter can continue to bleed properly and not be at risk of infection later. Swelling needs to be brought down so that the fighter doesn't have a disadvantage due to vision problems or restricted movement. Finally, blood loss needs to be minimized, so that the fighter is not only healthy, but also does not get disqualified due to excessive bleeding. Now, in boxing specifically, a fighter can be disqualified due to a cut that is deemed to be too severe for them to continue fighting. This is at the discretion of the ringside doctor. But generally speaking, if a fighter has a cut that is deep enough to require stitches, then they run the risk of disqualification. So it is imperative that the cutman is able to minimize the damage in order to keep the fighter in the fight. So, how do they do it? Well, first things first, they stop the bleeding by using a number of different tools and coagulants. Coagulants are substances that are used to stop bleeding. They come in a variety of forms, including sponges, sticks, powders, and liquids. The most common type of coagulant used by cutmen is a topical powder called thrombin. Thrombin is a substance that is derived from bovine blood, and it is effective at stopping bleeding in its tracks. When applied to a wound, it causes the blood vessels to constrict and the blood to clot, which effectively stops the flow of blood. In addition to thrombin, cutmen also use a variety of other coagulants, including styptic pencils, which are made of a combination of chemicals that are designed to stop bleeding. They're often used to cauterize small cuts and scratches. Liquid bandages, which are essentially just glorified band-aids, are used to cover up small wounds and prevent them from getting infected. And finally, there are also some herbal remedies that are used to stop bleeding, such as witch hazel and tea tree oil. After the bleeding is taken care of, the cutman may then use a cold-in swell press to reduce any swelling. A cold-in swell press is basically an ice pack that is wrapped in a towel or a cloth. It is applied to the affected area in order to reduce inflammation and bring down any swelling. The cold temperature causes the blood vessels to constrict, which reduces the amount of blood flow to the area. This can help to reduce swelling and bruising, as well as numb the area and reduce pain. And finally, once all of that is done, the cutman may apply some sort of dressing to the wound. This could be anything from a simple bandage to a more sophisticated dressing, depending on the severity of the wound. The purpose of the dressing is to protect the wound from further damage and to keep it clean and dry while it heals. Now, a good cut man is absolutely essential to a boxer's success. A great cutman can save a fight and allow a fighter to continue competing even when they are badly hurt. On the other hand, a bad cutman could cost a fighter a match. If a cutman fails to properly treat a wound, it could lead to infection, disqualification, or even a knockout. There was a great example of this back in 2014 when Floyd Mayweather was fighting Marco Smith. In the third round of the fight, Maidana accidentally headbutted Mayweather, which opened up a deep cut over his eyes. Now, Mayweather's cut. The legendary Rafael Cortez worked quickly to stitch up the cut and stop the bleeding. However, he may have missed a very important detail. He forgot to put Vaseline around the cut, which would have helped to prevent it from opening up again. As the fight went on, the cut kept opening back up, which caused Mayweather to lose points and almost get knocked out. In the end, Mayweather won the fight, but it was much closer than it had to be. All because of a mistake by the cut man. But here's the thing. Despite the fact that they are so important, cutmen are some of the lowest paid people in the sport. Many cutmen work for tips alone, and they often have to travel with their fighters and work long hours for very little pay. This is despite the fact that they are putting themselves on the line every time they work. If they make a mistake, it could cost their fighter worse. They could end up being sued for medical malpractice if they do something that is deemed to be negligent. Despite the risks and the low pay, there are plenty of people who want to be cutmen. It is an extremely difficult job. And it takes years of experience and training to become a competent cutman. There are only a handful of states that require cutmen to be licensed, but most fighters will seek out the best cutmen regardless of their credentials. Some of the best cutmen in the world are not licensed professionals, but rather just friends or family members of the fighters that they work with. In the end, the most important thing is that the cutman is able to do their job effectively. They need to be able to work quickly and efficiently under pressure. And they need to be able to make split-second decisions that could affect the outcome of the fight. It is an extremely stressful job, but it is also extremely rewarding. If the cutman does their job well, no one will ever know. But if they make a mistake, Evergan will. And now for a bit of trivia. Did you know that the first recorded instance of a cutman being used in a boxing match was back in 1897? This was during a fight between George Dixon and Johnny Gill. Dixon, who was the reigning world bantamweight champion, had a cutman in his corner who helped him to treat a severe cut over his left eye. This was a relatively new innovation at the time, but it quickly caught on, and by the early 1900s, cutmen were a common sight in boxing matches. So the next time you watch a fight, take a close look at the man in the corner. He might not be a fighter, but he is just as important to the outcome of the match as anyone else. His name is Rafael Cortez, and he is widely considered to be the greatest cutman of all time. He has worked with some of the biggest names in boxing history, including Floyd Mayweather, Oscar de la Hoya, Manny Pacquiao, and Canelo Alvarez. Cortez is known for his quick reflexes and his ability to stop any cut in its tracks. He is also credited with saving many fights for his fighters by keeping them in the ring even when they are badly hurt. Cortez is a legend in the boxing world, and his contributions to the sport are immeasurable. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new about the unsung magicians of the ring, the Cutman.
Okay guys, thank you for watching my videos.